Well, hello everybody, and welcome to week 4 of the class. And this is actually week 4 and 5, because the last 2 weeks of the class are sort of lumped together. And this will be my last kind of orientation video for you, because this will be the last week that any new concepts and ideas in the area of educational research are presented to you. And whereas there are some important things that you're going to learn more about this week, I did want to spend just a minute talking about a few of the things that you will not have learned about in this summer course. Things that normally would be part of an ed research class, but I had to make some cuts, and I just wanted to sort of summarize for you the things that aren't part of the class. But there is information in the course text if you want or need to learn more about these areas in the future for any work that you might be doing. One of the areas was in the area of doing a literature review. That is, using library resources or internet resources in order to help you do things like establish a theoretical framework for a research study, or even just try to determine what kind of research has already been done in an area that sort of addresses your own educational variables of interest. So that's something that requires a lot of time and effort to help you learn more about, and we just honestly didn't have a chance this semester to do that. Another thing that you're not going to be learning anything about in the class, although you'll be learning a little bit about some of the concepts this week, in this final week of class, and that has to do with statistics, and more specifically, the application of statistics to actual data sets. So you're not going to be asked to analyze any kind of data that you might get from me or that you might get from a study. And that's something, again, that requires a lot of effort and energy, and more importantly, time, in order to learn about, understand, and practice. And so I had to give that up as well. And the last area that is a very common area of research, especially for teachers, that I didn't address, is the area of action research. And there is a really good chapter of it in the course text, but let me tell you just a tiny bit about what action research is, and then I'll tell you why it wasn't part of my kind of 5 weeks for you. And that is that action research represents research that professionals do in the field, and they do it with their own students. In the case of teachers, they do it with their own students, and they do it for the purpose of addressing educational variables of interest and improving their own practice through the application of some research techniques and variables. And I think that what's most important is that doing research and learning how to do research in the area of qualitative, quantitative, and, as you're going to learn about this week, mixed method, those all apply to doing action research. It's really just a matter of purpose. And although I would encourage you to apply research methodology to the improvement of your own practice, I would say that would be the next step of what to do about what you're learning in this class. And it's also something that a lot of teachers don't have the time, energy, or effort to do in a formal way. And so, going back to the very first week of class, my focus for you was to help you think more scientifically. And I believe that thinking more scientifically can result in you doing a better job, whether you're going to formally apply research strategies to your own practice, or just whether you're going to start to recognize the value of evidence-based practice, the value of research when it comes to learning more about how to do things well. And so that's why if I had more time, if we had a regular semester class, we certainly would have addressed or approached the idea of action research. So I do suggest that you at least take a look at the chapter in the course text and sort of take a closer look at what action research might mean to professionals and what it could mean to you someday. But this week, for week 4, the main focus of week 4 is in the area of mixed method research. And what I really like about mixed method research is that it applies all of the fundamentals of quantitative research and qualitative research to help address, investigate, and maybe even potentially solve some rather complex questions or problems associated with education. And certainly a lot of questions or problems in education are rather complex, and there isn't one perfect approach to try and find solutions or at least learn more about the problems. But mixed method research is something that is highly valuable, and it's not only is it something that I'm going to ask you to learn more about in week 4, but I'm also going to ask you to apply everything about mixed method research in the final course project. So let me just finish saying or addressing what the content is for week 4, and then I'll talk about the project. So in addition to learning more about mixed method research strategies, which again is fundamentally a combination of quantitative and qualitative approaches, the things that you've been learning more about or that you learned a lot about in weeks 2 and 3. But you're also going to be presented with some information and examples about fundamental concepts in the area of research in general. And that is more detail about sampling and sampling methods, more details about measurement, making measurements, what kind of data are collected when you make different kinds of measurements, how you might validate certain measurements that you create as a researcher, and then a little bit about how you might analyze some of the data, and a little bit about some of the statistics that are very common in most educational research studies. So those are just some concepts that are going to be applied somewhat in the final project, because I'm going to ask you to consider how you're going to measure variables in a study that you design, and how you're going to sample subjects, and how you're going to establish some level of validity and reliability with your measures. So everything you're going to be learning about in week 4 is going to apply to the project. Now, I am going to, I introduced the project in week 4, but this is very important. It is not due until the end of week 5, until Friday of week 5. That's the official last day of class, and that will give me 2 days, maybe 3, to review all the projects. And as you know, that the final project is worth twice the points that all the previous projects were, and it certainly is a lot more in depth, and it asks you to apply a lot of things from weeks 2 and 3, as well as the mixed method material from this week, week 4. And once again, I'm going to ask you to consider a research study that is related to some of the strategies presented in the Understanding How We Learn book that you have read most of over the course of the last 4 weeks. I hope you found that book valuable. I love it not only because it helps you think more about some fundamental strategies that all educators should be aware of, and such stuff you might not have learned that much about, but it also presents research and the application of research in a very easy to read and compelling way. And I really like the visual aspect of organizing the book and organizing the information in the book. I thought that was very valuable. So that's what the project is going to be about. You're going to be designing a study, and it's a study that you're not going to be carrying out. There's no expectation for you to actually do it. We don't have time this semester, but I am going to ask you to think about if you were going to solve some related problems, and they're related to some of those strategies that are presented in the Understanding How We Learn book. what would that study look like for you? And if you're going to be using your own students or your own faculty at a school as subject in the study, what would that look like and what would you do? And so that's what the project is all about. So this week, again, week 4 is all about the mixed method and some of those fundamental research concepts. And then you can go ahead and get started on the final project this week if you want. You can put it all off until the final, until after you take the final exam for the course, which just covers the week 4 material. It's totally up to you, but there is a final due date for that final project, which is Friday of week 5. And as far as the information presentation goes for what you're expected to learn in week 4, I don't have any sort of elaborate details in a video form for you regarding the material for week 4, but I did record very comprehensive notes for you, and I aligned them with all of the objectives for week 4, or part 4, I should say. Again, note that some of the objectives are not measured on the exam, on exam number 4. But I did make a few videos last semester that relates to some of those fundamental concepts regarding sampling and types of data and that sort of thing. Some of those can be rather complex, and there's a whole chapter 10 in our assigned course text, the Kidsantis book, and you're going to read all of chapter 7 because that addresses all the details about the mixed method approaches that I present for in part 4. But there's also information in the text about sampling and measurement, and all of that stuff is in chapter 10. And I identify in the objectives that are posted in the general information part of the class, or the syllabus part of the class, I identify for you what pages in chapter 10 align with some of those concepts. And you'll notice you don't really have to read all of chapter 10. There's probably a total of 12 pages that specifically address the information and examples that are going to be measured on exam number 4. So, as always, like with everything else related to this class, if you have any questions after you review the stuff for part 4, please let me know. If you have any questions about what the final project requirements are and what approach you should take or anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can email me. We can set up a meeting. I know we don't have a lot of time left this semester, but I'm always available to help you, because I think that what I'm asking you to learn is important and valuable for you, and I want to help you as much as I can. So I hope you enjoy this final week of class in terms of studying notes and preparing for an exam, and then I do hope that you find the final project something that is a really good summary of everything that you've been asked to learn this in the last 5 weeks. So hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you have any questions, and carry on.